Look away, 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 look away.
Series of Unfortunate Events, Season 1, Episode 2, The Bad Beginning, Part 2, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode. You guys know I really did love the first one. I thought it was a really good way to get us introduced to the series overall, and I was looking forward to this because I heard while Part 1 is great, a lot of people think Part 2 is even better, and that definitely made me very intrigued. And it makes sense, too, because it is the longest, actually, of the 8 episodes, which is quite interesting. And while I did love this episode and still thought it was great, I do still think Part 1 is better. I think there was some really great stuff in Part 2. Part 2 is a lot more plot-driven. There's a lot more stuff going on. And yeah, if you want more plots, then Part 2 definitely is the one to turn to, because that definitely will be, you know, your favorite. But if you're someone who favors characters and is very invested in the show, then Part 1, I think, is the one to turn to. But overall, I still really enjoy this episode. The show continues to be just really witty and fun, but also being really dark as well. And I really love the direction the show is going into, so let's just get into it. So at the bank, we see Poe. He goes about his work and calls for the Baudelaire file to be brought in. He calls about for his secretary Jacqueline about like 5 times, and Lemony then reviews the history of the Baudelaires inside Poe's office and presents as a flashback just before the file. And this scene was quite weird to me. They acted as if you didn't need to watch the first parts, then you could just go into this one, but it's a Netflix binge. You're supposed to binge each episode, so what is the point of Lemony recapping the events of episode 1? That didn't really make much sense to me. Kind of off to a weird start. And, you know, Lemony was good in this episode, but this episode, he didn't really do a ton for me. He only had, like, 1 or 2 scenes I thought really was necessary. But this scene really just dragged on. I don't know why we had to recap the entire first episode, but he does in about 5 minutes, and, he talks about how this is going to be a flashback just for the file. I love that he explained to us what a flashback was. That was pretty funny. But Olaf and his troop arrive outside the bank. Olaf realized that no one brought the costumes, and Olaf freaking out about that was pretty hilarious to see. He tells the troop to stay in the car. He borrows pieces of apparel from the various pedestrians and goes inside where the secretary, Jacqueline, is on the phone, saying that she'll keep an eye on things. And Jacqueline's a character who actually was not in the books. This is a character that was written specifically for the series, and I really like her character because she's one of the only skeptics in the show. And what I mean about that is that she's one of the only, like, level-headed type characters that know that there's definitely something off about Count Olaf. Like, she doesn't trust him one bit. He says he has an appointment and claims that his name is Haircuts when he sees it in Poe's appointment book. And Poe calls to have Jacqueline bring in the Baudelaire file. Count Olaf then grabs it. He finally pulls it out of Jacqueline's hand and takes it to Poe's office. He says that he's there to consult about the Baudelaire will and notices Jacqueline watching him. He then continues to put on the facade of being his name is Haircut, which I thought was pretty funny to see. But, you know, Poe knows actually who he is, and Poe tells Jacqueline to cancel his appointment to get a haircut, and she goes outside and trains a telescope on Count Olaf's car because she doesn't trust him one bit, and the bald man says that he wants to make a withdrawal, and this was the perfect way of setting up really how the events transpire that led to the Baudelaires coming to Count Olaf. So inside, Poe says the Baudelaire's closest relative is a renowned scientist, and we realize that Poe didn't think that closest meant that, you know, just because he's dumb. It's actually because Count Olaf literally told him that closest means whoever lives nearest. So Count Olaf was easily able to get into his head, and the way that Poe's easily manipulated, you kind of understand. I mean, Poe's just someone who's kind of absent-minded, and he has a map of the city, says that Count Olaf is the closest to the orphans, so Poe calls Jacqueline to bring in a ruler, but gets no answer. He goes to get himself, unaware that Bald Man has actually tied Jacqueline to a tree in a remote park, and now that we're caught up, we go to the present. I thought this was a necessary flashback. I like the way this was done. I like that we saw how all this went down, and it just gave us some really great stuff for Neil Patrick Harris to do, which the show really is utilizing him quite well, and I definitely like that. But Count Olaf watches as Violet and Klaus chop firewood. Klaus wants to leave, but Violet figures that they're better off than on the streets, and I will definitely admit, they didn't do as much with Violet, Klaus, and Sunny in this episode. Like, they were definitely in it. That's, don't get me wrong. They were in the episode. But in terms of character work, they didn't do as much of them. I feel like the first episode did a lot more with them here, but it still worked for me. Meanwhile, the bald man tells Olaf that he has bad news about Jacqueline, and they go inside to discuss it, and you can tell that obviously what the bald man did was what Count Olaf told him to do, and later Violet and Klaus visit Poe, who says that he has to deal with an emergency since Jacqueline has disappeared without warning, and as they tell Poe that Count Olaf struck Klaus across the face, Poe is taking call after call. He's not really listening. He's very easily distracted. And again, there's some really great dark humor there. But he figures that the children are just imagining things and warns that Count Olaf can raise them any way he wants since he is in fact their legal guardian. So it's really not his problem how he raises them. And Poe says that his new secretary will give him a ride home. And the hook-handed man comes in. Like I said before, Poe means, well, he genuinely thinks that Count Olaf is a good selection for the Baudelaires, but he's just very naive and very absent-minded, like I said, very absent-minded and doesn't really know what he's talking about here. So the hook-handed man takes the children back to the manor. Count Olaf offers them raspberry cupcakes. Believe it or not, I was surprised. I was honestly shocked that he offered them actual food. But yeah, he's offering them raspberry cupcakes. And he says that Poe called him, and you can tell that Violet and Klaus are extremely just startled by this because they don't know if it's actually food. And basically he says that he wants the children to feel more at home. He apologized for being very standoffish, and I love the way that Klaus tried to explain to him what standoffish actually meant and that he wasn't being standoffish. Again, I love the way that Klaus and Violet are actually smarter than the adults on the show. It's just a really nice play on words that I think is it's very nice verbal comedy. That's what I'm trying to say. Very good verbal comedy. And Jacqueline then pulls the tree out of the ground. She makes her way to a phone booth and calls her associate Gustav, who I did not think Jacqueline was going to play the massive role she does in this episode, but she actually does a lot here, and I was very happy to see that because I really do like the direction they take her character. It was a lot of fun. So we find out that Count Olaf, he's not just being generous to them just for the sake of being generous. He actually is doing it because he wants the children to participate in his next play called The Marvelous Marriage, and they will give one performance that coming Friday night. Violet will play the woman that he marries, even though Violet insisted that she would build the set because she wanted to. Klaus apparently is going to be one of the audience members, and Violet warns that she might disgrace the part and will be busy working on inventions, and Count Olaf insists that she participate. He then tells them to talk to Justice Strauss while he eats cupcakes, because clearly they're not going to eat them. So the children go next door to Justice Strauss's house and find the Justice is in her library to get books about the theater and local ordinances, and Justice Strauss takes Sunny to the garden while Violet and Klaus read, and when she notices the bruise on Klaus's face, he says that they're trying to find out, and she leaves. Again, Justice Strauss is kind of under the, she's under the suspicion that, Count Olaf is this great guy and that he's doing all this great stuff for him, and that they're just kind of ungrateful. She still is kind of, thinking that, and it's easy to tell what Count Olaf is doing, and the fact that Justice Strauss, that didn't click in her mind, I don't know if it's trying to show that Count Olaf can easily manipulate everyone, but this is the one part of the episode that doesn't work as well for me. It's just the belief that Count Olaf can easily manipulate everyone as well as he can. I just don't really believe it. I don't know why he's so easily, why everyone's so easily manipulated by him and why they are willing to give in to him. I mean, you can tell that he has this really creepy, wretched, as Violet called, demeanor to him, so I don't know why they are giving in to him as easily as they are, but whatever. Olaf is then watching the children through a telescope when the white-faced woman shows him a sketch that they've made of a wedding dress for the play. The bald man interrupts to try out the wedding song. The henchman of indeterminate gender comes in to next complain about the inherent patriarchal structure of marriage, and I like the way he talked about this because, yeah, I mean, this is very much being driven by Count Olaf. He's not really letting Violet have a say in this, and Count Olaf's just about to make out that Klaus is reading a book on nuptial law, and the Count then looks up what nuptial means, and he quickly leaves, and I love the way he didn't know what that meant. That, again, was pretty funny. And when Justice Strauss comes back, Klaus points out that marriage occurs when both parts acquiesce and the bride signs the proper document, because, yeah, I mean, if they're in mutual agreement, that's how it really works, and she has to sign the proper document. So Count Olaf comes in, says that Justice Strauss will have a walk-in role in his play. Justice Strauss is eager to be an actress, and Count Olaf explains that she will play a judge, he will play the groom, and Violet will play the bride. So they will then sign an official document for realism, and Violet and Clausen try to warn Justice Strauss, but she insists that Count Olaf is welcoming them into his life. She tells them to go home and spend time with their new father, but Klaus takes the book with him as he goes, and they can tell that obviously Count Olaf is up to something big. We know we're starting to get the pieces of what's going on here. I did like the way that, again, Justice Strauss kind of gave in to Count Olaf. You know, she's always wanted to be an actress, so that part definitely believe. We know she wanted to be an actress. We know something she's wanted to pursue all her life, so she finally gets to, you know, make that dream happen. But, of course, for the price of not actually knowing what Count Olaf is really up to. So back in the manor, Olaf tells the hook-handed man to lock up the children in the room until Friday, and once he does so, Klaus says he's going to stay all up with the book, and he finally finds out what he needs to know, and he goes downstairs. So Olaf is then at the dinner table, and he says that he knows what Count Olaf is up to, and we get this great scene here where Count Olaf, we realize, doesn't know the difference between literally and figuratively, and it's this great running joke throughout the entire episode, and honestly, it never got stale. It worked really well. It showed how not dumb, but uneducated he really is, how he thinks he knows everything, but really he doesn't, and Klaus is way smarter than him. I love the way that scene was done. Very funny stuff there, and I love that Lemony literally tried to explain to us what literally and figuratively meant. That was pretty hilarious. I love the way that was done, and basically, Count Olaf's going to marry Violet literally and gain control of the Baudelaire fortune. We find out that he actually that this marriage is actually for real. And this is not just a play. It's actually going to happen. And this is his way of gaining their fortune, which in hindsight is actually quite a smart plan, I have to say. While Count Olaf isn't really the brightest, you know, tool in the shed as we've seen, this definitely is a very well thought out plan, because this gets him the fortune, this gets him Violet, he has full ownership of the kids, there's nothing he can do to get them away. This basically gives him everything, and you're not rooting for Count Olaf, obviously, you know, you're not rooting for him at all, but you definitely can understand what he's trying to do, and kind of how he wants, I don't think he wants a family, but you know, he wants his fortune, and Clausen points out that Violet isn't old enough to be married, and Count Olaf points out that Violet can get married if she has permission of her legal guardian, and she does, so Klaus says that he'll go to Poe and leaves. So as Klaus goes up the stairs, he meets Violet coming down. Count Olaf tells his troop that Klaus figured out their plan, and the children then go to get Sunny, only to discover that the baby is gone, and Count Olaf comes up, says that he can hear Sunny outside. They run out and eventually see Sunny. She's in a cage fastened to the highest tower, and Count Olaf threatens to drop her unless Violet marries him, and Violet agrees that if he frees Sunny, she will marry him, and the Count then says he'll let Sunny go until after the play. So Jacqueline then makes her way through the sewers, still tied to the tree. Gustave arrives and says that he and Monty were expecting the Baudelaire children days ago. Monty was actually supposed to be their actual guardian. You know, we found that out very early on in the episode, that Monty Montgomery was supposed to be the one the Baudelaires were left with. So Jacqueline explains that Poe listened to Count Olaf posing as a consultant, and she says that if they attend the play, then they can get things back on track without calling attention to themselves, because they know what he's trying to do. Gustave agrees, and they're going to try to find a way to get the children back to Poe, because they know that Poe will most likely be in attendance. And I like the way that Jacqueline and Gustave are very much, you know, plotting this plan to really help the kids. I like the way that's done, but at the same time, you definitely get the sense that they don't really know what they're doing either. You know, they don't really know what's great for the kids. You know, again, they're not really letting the kids have a say here, but I do like the way, again, you have two characters who really weren't in the book that much, and they're giving them more to do, and that is exactly what you need to do when you have a TV series that, you know, is building on the books. This is how you change things up. The show so far is doing a very good job of doing that, and this is a very good example of how the show tries to not derive but evolve from its source material. So in the bedroom, Violet dismantles their bed as part of her new invention. She assures Klaus that he helped but didn't finish the job, explains that their parents made her promise to look after her siblings and keep them out of trouble. So Violet then goes to the kitchen. She grabs various utensils and then takes them to the bathroom, assembles them into her newest invention, and I like seeing Violet work. You can tell that her brain works in this really intelligent way. You know, she very meticulously knows what she's doing, and I like seeing that, but Count Olaf's trying on the wedding dress when he hears a clanking noise from the upper room. It's a pretty pretty disgusting scene, honestly. Seeing him on that wedding dress was pretty horrible to look at, but he ignores it, unaware that Violet is trying to snag Sunny's cage support with her makeshift grappling hook, and once she does so, she activates the device on her back and pulls her up by the line. However, the hook-handed man is waiting, drags her in. He then calls Count Olaf, tells him that Violet is trying to rescue Sunny, so Olaf then brings Klaus up, warns that he'll touch anything he wants, and after locking them up in the tower room, he leaves. Violet then tells Klaus what she attempted, suggests that he research a way to get them out of the marriage while she makes something to let them escape. So Lemony's in his apartment, looks at a blurry photo of Beatrice. He laments not being able to help the Baudelaires and looks at the theater across the street. We don't know a ton about Beatrice. We just know this is a girl that he truly did love and that he truly did want to be with, but something bad happened to her. I'm sure we're going to find out what that is much later in the series, but I do like the way that they're giving Lemony his own character, and they're really trying to set up, what his relation was like with Beatrice. I like the way that's done, but Violet suggested they make Molotov cocktails to get attention, but we see they have no gasoline. So Count Olaf arrives, says that the hook-handed man will drop Sunny if anything goes wrong with the performance, and at the theater, Eleanor is interviewing Olaf, asks about the rumors that the play is an evil plan. Count Olaf assures her that the only evil plot will be on the stage, and he goes about his business. Eleonora pretty much thinks that he's telling the truth, so Count Olaf and Strauss sit next to Violet and Klaus and insists that she use the actual wording of a marriage ceremony to make this as much like a wedding as possible. So when the children try to warn her, Count Olaf quickly moves her away, and the play begins as Olaf comes out to give his first soliloquy. The hook-handed man then tries to teach Sunny how to play poker, and I love the way that Sunny actually knew how to do it. She deals, soon wins her freedom, tying up the hook-handed man with each hand that he loses, and I love that she had the upper hand here. A baby had the upper hand against the hook-handed man. I thought it was just a really fun scene overall. The baby continues, and Count Olaf then continues performing at the handsome man. The wedding scene finally begins, and Strauss, Violet, and Klaus go out. Justice Strauss freezes up at first, but finally gets going, realizing kind of what's actually going on, but Count Olaf signs the paperwork, says, I do. Justice Strauss asks Violet if she does the same. Violet then signs the paperwork, says that I do, and Justice Strauss declares them husband and wife. So Olaf then ends the play, and basically tells him that there's no reason to continue because its purpose has in fact been served, and he explains his entire plan, how he controls the Baudelaire fortune, and Justice Strauss finally admits the marriage is binding, and basically finally realizes what Count Olaf was actually trying to do here. But unfortunately, it's too late. She admits there's nothing that Poe can do. Count Olaf orders the reception to begin. Waiters serve food, but Klaus then tells Count Olaf to let Sunny go. And Count Olaf tells the hook-handed man to drop Sunny. And he literally was planning on dropping this child to her death. Like, he literally could not give less of a shit about this baby. And the hook-handed man then arrives carrying Sunny in a wheelbarrow. He explains that he lost to a straight flush and had to bring Sunny there. And unimpressed, Count Olaf says that he'll dispose of the baby on the honeymoon. Invites Violet to dance. She says that she didn't sign the document in her own hand because she's actually right-handed. She signed it with her left hand. So basically, Justice Strauss considers the matter, then says that she doesn't know, and Klaus calls for a chalkboard and explains the legal argument in great detail. Justice Strauss is convinced and declares that there was no marriage involved, and I like this. I like they were able to get out of this, and it makes sense, too, because they gave us that detail in the first episode that Violet, is right-handed, and now it makes sense why they told us that, because, this is the thing that would get them out of the contract. So Count Olaf warns Violet that she is still his daughter. Poe says that he won't let Count Olaf continue as the Baudelaire's legal guardian now that he knows what Count Olaf's really been doing. I like the way that his plan was thwarted, and Jacqueline's in the audience and explains that Count Olaf's associates kidnapped her, tied her to a tree. Monty's waiting to hear from the children. Poe rehires her, declares an end to the series of unfortunate events, but we know it's obviously not the end. The bald man then turns off the lights. Count Olaf escapes into the darkness after whispering to Violet that he will get their fortune. So Justice Strauss invites the children to come home with her, and it's this very sad moment where you think, okay, finally they're going to get to go with Justice Strauss, but Poe says they have to be raised by a relative. They can't be raised by Justice Strauss as much as they want to be. She can't care for them because it wasn't in their parents' legal agreement. Their parents' legal agreement said it had to be a relative, and Justice Strauss, as much as she wants to be, she's not their relative, and just the look on her face is a look of despair, knowing that she can't raise these children that she's grown such a fond attachment to, and someone that, she really, she wanted to have kids of her own, but she couldn't, and this gave her a chance to finally have some sort of bond with kids and finally be somewhat of a mother to them, and just seeing her realizing she can't live that dream and that any sort of version of that is a fantasy was really sad to see, and I think they just did a really good job of building up Justice Strauss' character. Another character that could have been very one note, but they built her up so well that you really do feel bad for her after the children have to leave. I definitely did feel bad for her in that situation, but Jacqueline agrees, saying that the Baudelaire parents have a specific destination for their children. Justice Strauss then hugs the children, says that she will miss them, and Poe then leads the Baudelaires away. Olaf and his troop then escape through the sewers, and you know that definitely they're going to be back somehow. So Lemony leaves his apartment through the window as the landlord knocks on the door, and Jacqueline calls Gustave to confirm if the Baudelaires have arrived at Monty's, and as Gustave responds to say they're not there yet, he takes a dart to the neck and literally dies into... he literally falls into the pool. So yeah, Gustave is dead. He actually was tranquilized by the dart. And meanwhile, Jacqueline says that she has a lead on the Baudelaire parents, unaware that Gustave has collapsed. So definitely Jacqueline's going to come back in the story somehow. That's going to tie into what's going on there. And in her library, we see Justice Strauss. She considers a book on adoption law. She then puts it back on the shelf and notices a nearby book on secret organization. So don't really know what that's about, but it does give me the hope that Justice Strauss is going to remain in the story, which I hope she does, because Joan Cusack is so great as a character. I really want to see more of her. I heard we don't this season, but I hope we see more of her as the show goes on. But as Poe drives to bowl their children to Monty's, they wonder if they're going in the wrong direction, and if Monty really is the right guardian for them. They don't know if this is actually going to work out, if they're actually free from Olaf. They really feel this is incomplete, and we then get to the ending where we see in a jail cell, we finally see Mother and Father read the newspaper. They figure that their children are in deeper danger with every passing moment. Mother builds a grappling hook and a Molotov cocktail just like her daughter does, and Father reveals an eye pattern that he has carved into the floor. It is the same eye pattern that Count Olaf has on his ankle, and that is the way the episode ends. Really great stuff overall. Let's just get into this episode and where I think we're going to go from here. So overall, this was a pretty great episode. I really did love where this episode took us. But this episode did feel kind of final in many ways. We know that Count Olaf obviously can't raise the kids anymore, but he's back in the story. That he definitely is going to come back in some fashion. We've seen the trailers that he masked himself as several different disguises, so I'm very interested in seeing how he's going to come back, and I can't wait to see the way that Count Olaf has come back. Neil Patrick Harris has done such a great job with this character, and I can't wait to see the way that he comes back as Count Olaf. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch is what ends up happening there. But the other big question is Monty really as great as Jacqueline and, Poe thinks he is? Is he really that great, or is he just as bad as Count Olaf? Can he raise them? What really is going to happen with Monty? We'll have to see. They really know nothing about him, and they have a lot of doubts. You can definitely tell, especially after what's happened to Count Olaf. They really aren't taking any chances, and that's very understandable after what's happened with him, so who really knows where that's going to go? And then Jacqueline. I like that Jacqueline is still in this story. I like that she knows stuff about the Baudelaire's parents being alive. I like that she, now Gustave has died. Definitely Jacqueline is going to play a big role in this. I don't know in what capacity, but she definitely is going to come back in some way, so that's definitely going to be interesting to see. Poe is, very easily manipulated, but it's clear he is seeing through the ways of Count Olaf, and I like the direction that's going. But again, has he really made the right decision? Only time will tell, I guess, but we'll have to see where that's going to go. And then I guess the only other thing to really talk about is Mother and Father. We now know that Mother is very much like Violet, where she can invent things, and then Father has, the tattoo that's on Count Olaf's ankle. What is that really all about? What's going to happen there? And what is this secret organization that Justice Strauss has now learned about? Because that's definitely connected to what is going on with, the Baudelaires. There's definitely something going on there that we don't really know about, so that's something else I'm very interested in getting into, is what really is the eye tattoo the eye pattern all about, what's really going on with that. I think that's going to be very interesting. And then Lemony as well. We know that Lemony is somehow connected to all this. He knows a lot of this information. He was involved with Count Olaf and things like that, so we'll have to see what happens there. I'm ruling out the possibility that Count Olaf was behind the fire. I don't think there's any foreseeable way that could have happened. There's not really anything that's hinted at it. I don't really think that he had anything to do. The only thing, again, is him saying that, her mother, burn pretty nicely, but as we saw in this episode, Count Olaf is just gross. He really is. I mean, there was this scene where he touched Violet's shoulder and told her that everything is mine, so you get the sense he's a bit of a pedophile, maybe even a bit of a sadist. Like, I really think that Count Olaf, he's a very vile creature, but I like that they're not creature, very vile man, but I like the way they're not going, from 0 to 80 with him. They are, in fact, trying to keep him to be a fun character, because if he was just, this horrible, evil man the whole time and they took it that seriously, the show wouldn't be entertaining. The show would be really boring, and there's only so much you can take of someone, violating someone like that. So I like that we do get to see a more fun side of Count Olaf, but we're still seeing the deeper layers that he has. There's still a lot more to him than we know, and that's something I thought was very well done, is the way they've really developed Count Olaf throughout these 2 episodes. We don't know a ton about him, but we definitely know there's more to him than what we know, so I like the direction that that's headed, and I like his theater troupe as well. I like the role they play in this episode. That was a lot of fun to watch. I definitely really did enjoy that. And the only other thing I will say about this episode, my one complaint is that, one, I don't know why he was able to easily manipulate everyone. The way that everyone is buying into Count Olaf's lies and kind of just going along what he's saying, I'm just not really buying. I don't get the sense that Justice Strauss especially would easily believe Count Olaf as much as she is. It just doesn't really seem like something that Justice Strauss would do. I get that she wanted to be an actress. I get that that is a dream that she's wanted to live her entire life. I completely understand that. That's fine. But the whole thing with Count Olaf getting into people's heads, easily manipulating them, that part of the show just isn't that believable to me. I don't believe that he is a mastermind. I don't believe that he can, do that kind of thing. Yeah, he's very smart with his plans, but as we've seen, he's a very bad actor. It's very easy to see through him. So I don't know why it was so easy for him to manipulate. Mr. Poe, I can understand. Mr. Poe, he sees the good in everyone. He wants to believe that everyone's good, and he doesn't really see anyone bad unless some bad, some sort of mean trait comes out, like what happened with Count Olaf. He wants to believe everyone's good. But Justice Strauss, on the other hand, I just didn't really believe that she, bought into Count Olaf. That just didn't really make sense to me. I don't really know why she was easily manipulated by him. The acting part I understand. I just don't get the whole thing of her believing that he really was this good of a man, when in reality he wasn't, as we know. But I do like the stuff we got with Justice Strauss, and I like overall the expansion we're getting on some of these characters, especially when it comes to Jacqueline and with Justice Strauss. 2 characters who really didn't have a ton to do in the books, but they're giving you a lot more to do here, and that really is overall fleshing out the characters to the point where I really do care about them, especially Justice Strauss. I very much care about her. I really do want to see her again. I can't wait to see really where she's going to go. And then the only complaint is that we didn't really get to see a lot of mother and father, and I don't know if this is going to be something where we see them just at the end of every episode. I hope that's not the case, though, because I like the direction that we're heading with them. I like the fact that they're alive. The show's not really doing a lot with it right now, though. They're focusing a lot more on Violet and Klaus and things like that, and their whole mission, and, what happened with Count Olaf and things like that. But I do hope they focus more on the ending. That whole plot twist is the thing that really is separating the show from the movie, and I'm interested in seeing really where that's going to go. Overall, guys, I still really enjoy this episode. It was a lot of fun to watch. There were some really great character moments. Like I said, some very funny moments, especially the stuff with, the figuratively and literally joke. I love that running gag throughout the show. And the way the show, again, has that great running gag of the adults think that they're smarter than the kids, when in reality, it is vice versa. I like the direction that that's going. I think they need to keep up those kind of jokes. They do a really good job with that stuff. Still very British humor, but it's really working very well for the show. Overall, I really do love what the show is doing, and I am going to give a series Unfortunate Events Season 1, Episode 2, The Bad Beginning Part 2, a 4.5 out of 5 or an A-. So overall, guys, most guys saw this episode. Loved your thoughts on it. Do you like where the show is going? Where do you think the show is going to go from here? What are they going to do with the twist? If you guys have seen the season, please don't try to spoil it for me. I am going to try to watch a little bit more of the show. I know that I've been a little bit slower with it, but I am going to try to watch more this week, possibly. We'll have to see. But I will see you guys in the next video. That's it for this video, and I will see you guys in the next video, which will be for Taboo, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.